Ladies and gentlemen, all day today I plan on doing something else, and then I picked up my phone and I talked with a friend who was very disgusted because of what Frundi was saying at the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations. So that forced me to go watch a little bit of it. But before I went, Frundi was gone already. I think they were making very short presentations, and so I just stayed and I enjoyed the presentations a lot. I I I did not expect very much of this presentation. I know some people have sold it. I heard some of our activists push the conference and push the survey they were doing. So I decided that, well, let me, if this person who I respect is watching it and getting very involved, I said, let me watch it too. And my goodness, yes, I sat through. And as I was watching it, I was making myself some notes, and I want to share them with you because I was surprised. I was surprised. And the reason I was surprised was because our struggle so far, especially since after Siseko and the Naira 10 were picked up, had become childish. It started going down. It was going down not only in terms of the quality of people, but also the discourse, the bombastness, and a lot of what just made the whole struggle very disgusting. A lot of lies telling. I don't want to go into all the negatives, but just know that today was a breath of fresh air from what has been going on for the past 2 years. And so I sat through and I wrote to myself, I said, my goodness, we are beginning to listen to the adults that we always knew. I always knew that there were a lot of adults in Ambazonia. And part of my frustration with what was going on, and I was one of the very first to start criticizing what was going on a few months after the Naira 10 were picked up. If you go and look at some of the shows, Roger and I started picking up on these things because things were just not adding up, and it took a long time for the public to catch up, but it was more because of the level of information. The more involved you are, the more you know what is working and what is not working. So today was really a breath of fresh air in terms of the quality of people speaking, in terms of the variety of people. I mean, we had ambassadors speak, we had politicians speak, European parliamentarians, academicians. We had people from all sorts of, from all kinds of. We had a lot of specialty in there. That's what I'm trying to say. That we had people who came from a very, very varied background, and I liked a lot of what they were saying. It told me that people are actually very interested in this struggle, and are trying to help from their own little corner. That was refreshing. But I totally was very impressed with our people. Let me see what I wrote. I said, doctors talk like people who did not chop school fees. I said, I met our people, the guys who organized this, they were speaking like people who no chop school fees. I don't know how else I can say it, but you know what I mean. Their tone was right. Their composure, their articulation, their humility. And humility really is a sign of maturity. They were not trying to push anything on anybody. They just said what was there, and they said it in the nicest, in the calmest of ways. I said, all signs of what we need to lead or to follow in this very difficult situation we find ourselves in. And I'm talking about humility again. You need humility to lead, irrespective of what your qualities are or what your qualifications are. You need to be, I don't want to use another word because it will not come through as being accurate. You need humility to be able to listen to other people. You need humility to deliver your message so that people are getting the message, they're not getting anything else. Because if you come and you're bombastic, your bombasticness will be distracting, so what you're trying to communicate will not go through. If you come and you're cocky, you're proud, you're boastful, that would also obscure your message. You also need humility to follow. You need to be able to hear another point of view, even if you think you know so much that you cannot be led by somebody else. You don't only have to lead in front. You don't. No, let me put it again. Let me use the word lead. You don't have to be in a leadership position to lead. Okay? And it takes a certain maturity, a certain level of humility to be able to follow. It is always said that if you cannot follow, you cannot lead. So it was very humbling to see our people talking like us, dreaming the same dreams we all dream, feeling the same frustrations like we do. But they were seasoned enough, they were mature enough, they were grown up enough, they were educated enough, they know enough, they have enough wisdom to know how to bring all of us together and communicate this to us without us being distracted by something that we don't need. I wrote here that no posturing at all. People were not posturing at all. They were not claiming to be what they were. They were not claiming to deliver something spectacular that they don't have. But what they believed in is that we are better than what we are doing right now, and that we can come together and actually accomplish our dreams. But we need to come together, and we need to, all of us, I don't want to jump ahead of myself because Dr. Ako Asana said, if you're a unionist, come on board and tell us why you want to be unionist. If you're a federalist, come and tell us, and then go and bring La Republique, bring the solutions from La Republique. But what the situation we have right now is not good enough. I already said that I was impressed by the invitees and their presentations, not only in quality but also variety. Africa, Europe, Americas, diplomats, politicians, academicians, they were all there. I don't know where these guys, I don't know how they brought all these people, but I was impressed. I was impressed because the quality of people we've been having to lead or talk about our struggle in the past few years, I didn't see them bringing any of these people. And so I really felt today that if nothing else, I was made more aware that there are more people in better places that are listening and are interested in our struggle or are willing to come and talk to us about it than have been shown in the past 2 years. The good was discussed. People care about what is going on in Ambazonia. That's what I just said. Want to contribute towards a solution. All these people came. Their presentations, inside their presentations, they were presenting us with a clearer understanding or with a clearer perspective of what our struggle involves and at least from their perspective. You know what I'm saying? So it was very refreshing to see European parliamentarians stand and talk, and listening to them, that this is not the first time they're talking about us and it will not be the last time. That was very refreshing. So I noted to myself, I said the bad was discussed. Now, in the bad was, I'm going to look at my notes. Is it, and one of the biggest bad was that there's no help coming from the outside that is predicted or tailor-made for us. That's what I gathered. Because our people are big on the international community, like the international community is some Rambo sitting somewhere that we need to bring to come and say, okay, I'm going to take care of this for you. No Rambo is coming. because they were saying that the international community is not a monolithic. The international community is a whole bunch of people with different interests. And so to bring them together to come and take care of Ambazonian issue is not that difficult. I know there was a time when Dr. Monzo tried to say this, but Dr. Monzo was saying it not in a positive way, but he was saying it as being an obstacle so that we shouldn't even dare fight for what is ours. So it was made clear to all that the UN is not coming anytime soon. And they told us, and what came through in this discussion was that the UN is not coming because the UN, especially when they involve things that the big powers are not that interested in, or that they're interested in a negative way, meaning that people who have bought land, countries that have bought land in La Republique, they're not going to go challenge Paul Biya because Paul Biya sold them that land. People who are interested in getting what they want, or people who have been getting everything they want, any of the big powers that have been getting everything they want from Paul Biya, they're not going to challenge Paul Biya because it's not to their personal interest. And so it is not about morality, it's not about right and wrong, it's just about interest. And so to bring all these people and so to deal with all their interests, it's a hard thing. Okay, I don't want to say any more than that. So there is no UN coming anytime soon, no AU coming. What was interesting was that I heard that, when you go and tell the UN to get involved, the UN say, the regional organization has to get involved first before we, the AU, can come in. And when they were saying that, I was thinking, in Ivory Coast, when they wanted to get rid of Gbagbo, the UN was right down there, the French were right down there, and before you know, the Nigeria was there, and the AU wrote a very bogus letter, which was totally against the interests of Ivory Coast and Africa, and the challenge of Gbagbo, because there was no doubt that Gbagbo was being railroaded out of his country because he was speaking for his country. And what Gbagbo wanted was he wanted to open up his economy like they stated. They wanted to open up their economy so that they can get all kinds of other contractors from other countries bargaining for what they have in Ivory Coast. And the French did not want that. And so Gbagbo was not the man. And before you know, everybody was there. But now, because Paul Biya is the person giving everybody everything except his own people, he's been there for 49 years. No, you don't hear anybody calling him clinging to power like they used to say Gbagbo. In 10 years, meaning in his second term, fighting the French and the rebels that were sponsored, they call him clinging to power. And before you know, he was captured and taken to The Hague. And when they took him to The Hague, they made sure it take a lifetime for a judgment to come. And that's the Africa we are living with, or we are living in. And so we would need to be very, 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 very creative, because nobody is going to be backing us up. No Commonwealth is coming. And the reason why I say very, very creative, because there are countries that have freed themselves, but they free themselves by being creative, by going out there and looking for what my very good friend Terence Bangawakai calls a muscular state. The UN did not intervene in the case of East Timor, but Bill Clinton was interested enough and went in there, and East Timor had their country, and they have their country today. But East Timor did a lot of work. They fought the enemy effectively. They made their story known. They went out and looked for friends, and some of those friends have friends in higher places, and before you know, their problem was solved. That's what Ambazonia will need to go through. And to do that, We will need more than we have going on right now to have those people come to our side. So far, we're on the right side because disorganized as we've been, loudmouth as we've been, and all the thievery that has gone on, we have still been able to hold La République and the French down for 4 years. That's an accomplishment. And what I saw today was telling me that we are even going to get better, and that we do have what it takes. We do have what it takes, and what it takes three things. Three things. It takes creative human beings. It takes, and among the human resources, it takes the diaspora. It takes our fighters on the ground. That's one. The second is organization. And the third, and when I talk of organization, I mean you organize for money, you organize for resources. And I can tell you one thing about the money. In the diaspora, there is money. And if you hear that some people stole 2 million and reported 1 point something million in a very short time, because that money, the 1 point something million that is reported, but which we know more than that was contributed, it was really contributed within 1 year. Just within 1 year. Because last year, people were not very interested in contributing anymore. But so that money is there and will always be there until Ambazonia has no diaspora. Because the money that Ambazonians are contributing from the diaspora to fund the struggle is not some finite piece of money that they pick and give you and then there's nothing there anymore. No. As long as the Ambazonians who are in the United States, who are in Europe, who are in South Africa, who are in Asia, who are around the world, making a living for themselves, there is money to send home. Because that's how the littles that we contributed became millions. And people gave it without thinking. It was just change that they gave in their pocket. Now, if the ground starts performing, if the boys on the ground also organize themselves and starts performing and start producing results, I can tell you, then Ambazonians will actually start actually considering how much they want to give rather than just say taking change out of their pocket. And so you see that we can finance this thing. And as we do, then other people who are not part of us will look at this thing and say, you know what, I'm going to join these people in the fight because it is a just fight. It is a just fight. So East Timor was the example that I wanted to give, that, yeah, the UN may not come in. It didn't go to, the UN didn't go to East Timor. They came in a little later, but they did not initiate it. The East Timorese started their thing, and then for their fight went and got friends who have friends, and the UN only came at last. The UN always comes in last, especially when it involves issues of other people other than the big powers who can go into the Security Council and say, you know what, I'm going to give you here. What do you give me? Because I have some interest there. And so they bargain within them. So we are not part of that. But we can make it. So we must do better than we have been doing. Be ready to fight to the end. That's very clearly it. This means better organizations, more responsible speak. More responsible speak. And what I was trying to note there is, you know, I have this thing in stages where you, as a human being, you first of all think about something. When you thought about it and the thought is clear, then you voice it. And when you start voicing it, you begin now to reach other people. You begin to bring other people into your thinking. And if the blueprint in there is correct and it's articulated correctly, that's when people support you. So we don't need to go and posture and be loudmouth about things and challenge people that we shouldn't be challenging. And we just need to be able to talk to win. I haven't really discussed what each speaker said. I cannot say all of it, but I was particularly interested in Professor Carson Anyangwe's contribution. And here's what I noted to myself. Professor Carson Anyangwe, he basically what he did, he came and said, we cannot see our struggle through the eyes of La République as everyone wants to see it. Because if you've been listening, so they go and murder children in Kumba, and the Secretary General of the UN tells Paul Biya to investigate. Now we know, and Eric Tato came here demonstrating to us that it was the administration of Paul Biya through its duo in Manthe who instructed the military to go and murder these people in plain clothes. And now the UN is telling Paul Biya to investigate. Now, if these investigations, they said investigate and make sure that you punish. If Paul Biya was being effective in investigating and punishing, and if those who went and committed the crimes in Gabu were really punished, you think another soldier will obey the commands of the DO and go and murder children in the class? No, they will look at it and like, no, Mr. Dio, you remember we followed, some of our colleagues followed orders in Gabu, and they're the ones being punished right now. But they know nothing is going to happen. So for the Secretary General and all these people around the world who are telling the Cameroon government to resolve the problem are seeing our problems through the eyes of La République, through the eyes of the French. And when I call the French, I have no bias against the French in terms of what they do, but they themselves come and report. They said, the Le Monde reported that the French have confessed that Paul Biya is still surviving because they are protecting him. And Paul Biya has decided to use that protection well. And so Dr. Carson Anyangwe is saying, no, our problems don't have to be seen through the eyes of La République. We are an independent, a separate people, and our problems are an international problem, and we need international involvement, and we need what is going on in our territory to be judged by international standards. What is wrong in international warfare should be wrong in Ambazonia. We did not declare war. La République declared the war, and they're coming and fighting us. And Professor Anyangwe is saying, for those people who don't know and they come and try to either define our struggle as though it's part of La République, no, that is wrong. That is wrong. And until our problems are defined accurately, they cannot produce a workable solution. And so it will not end the fight. It will not. So I really appreciated the interjection of Professor Anyangwe in clarifying what the thinking should be for those who are really interested in bringing a long-lasting resolution in the situation in Ambazonia. I also like the honesty and the conclusion by Dr. Ako Asana. Basically, Dr. Ako Asana, who was hosting the show, when you go to some of these conferences, people don't speak clearly. And so when I'm sitting and I'm listening, my antennas are fishing out for something. And most of the time, what I want is to know who are the patriots of Ambazonia and who are not. And that's why I actually zeroed in on what Professor Carson Anyangwe said. Dr. Ako Asana, at the end, I like the summary that he gave. And he declared that he was a restorationist looking for a dialogue to end the situation because the situation is not acceptable. One of the things that Professor Anyangwe also talked about is that La République is committed to a military solution. That's all they have. That is the only thing they have. This is a regime. The regime in La République du Cameroon came in through a genocide. I always want to bring people to remember what the French pilot who flew the helicopter said, that the French supported La République, and what they did was massacre people, cut women's breasts, puncture them, kill the men. So they came to power by pacifying their country by killing people. They did not say, you know what are you trying to say? Let me listen to you. And they do that because they're Europeans. The Biya regime, the Ahidjo regime, is a one regime that has been there. They represent Europeans. They represent European interests. And Europeans, for the longest time, have refused to see Africans as human beings. They've refused to see Africans as human beings. And so, I think it's... is it Mitterrand or one of them who says, there are two things I'm thinking of here. He said, in places like in Rwanda, genocide is not important, meaning that you can kill Africans, and when we talk about genocide, we're talking about genocide of white people or not black people. Definitely not black people. I played a video here on my last show. You can go look at that one. And it was a show where we talked a little bit about Kumba. And you listen to this white guy, I think he's a European, and he was making it very categorical that Africa is a producer of raw material, and they must keep Africans producing raw material and impoverish. He did not talk about us as if he was talking about human beings. Because how do you keep human beings impoverished, especially human beings in this day and age who know how to read, who know everything? You do that by imposing people like Paul Biya on them, and you support them, give them arms, and ignore any other crime, ignore what your agents are doing down there. That's what's going on. And so they go and take all these poor kids, train them, put guns in them, call them B, and train them to go and cover their eyes and kill. Kill, don't even think. You know, I don't know if any of you saw Tanganji sitting there and saying, Paul Biya's power comes from God, Mokete's power comes from God, and only the military is licensed to carry a gun. That is a mentality. That was. I'm trying to look for a stronger word. That was a mentality. That was an ideology that was destroyed. That was destroyed centuries ago. He's talking about divine rulers. There's nothing like divine rulers. There's nothing like divine rulers. That was destroyed a long time ago. In fact, democracy came because the idea of somebody being ordained to come and rule others was discredited. And that's how John Locke came and said, each human being has the power to know what is right and wrong, the power of good and bad. Each human being can live without government. But the only reason why we need a government is because I cannot prevent one guy from stealing my property. I cannot prevent one guy from bullying me. And so we need to give away some of our powers in order to form a government so that government protects all of us. But that government cannot be one man. That government needs to actually be, in countries that are well governed, and I'm going to talk about the United States, it needs to be a legislature, it needs to be a judiciary. Okay? So you have the legislature, you have the judiciary, and then you have the executive. Okay? So you have your president, but you have a legislature. And so the president obeys laws that were passed by the legislature. And if he steps out of his way and start assuming powers that don't belong to him, or start misusing the military or the police, then there's a court that you can take him to, and that will be resolved. In La République du Cameroon, Paul Biya it's a one-man show in La République du Cameroon, and the international community loves that, because then they can come and say, hey, Paul Biya, we know you're a country, but we're going to create a B and have Israelis taking care of you. Can you imagine in the United States, the people guarding the White House are Russians or Frenchmen or Chinese? You see how crazy it is that Paul Biya is sitting there and he's surrounded by a firewall of Israelis taking care of him. So he now operates in the place as a predator without any other predator above him. There's no law. So Paul Biya is not afraid of law. There's no international community, because he is representing the international community or their interests. And that's why the place is ruled with impunity. The poverty there is poverty with impunity. The guy who talked about keeping Africa producing raw materials for Europeans and impoverished said that in 1975, Africa was making 5% of world trade. Today they are producing more, but they're making 1% of world trade, which means that the rest of the world is growing and multiplying quadruply, and Africa is instead marching backwards. They march backwards because everybody there comes and gets his own, and it's a policy. It's a policy that they drain Africa. And this guy was so good. People hate that video, but I like the clarity with which he said it.
Sub-Saharan Africa has been fundamental to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. Okay? And Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer. We will not allow Sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep Sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about that.
Okay, he said they will keep Africa down by every means. One, they will do it militarily. They will do it by you go out. Do you want a World Bank loan? Yeah, World Bank will come and say, you know what? I know the government owns this industry, but you have to, they call them structural adjustment, but you have to sell it. You have to open it up to the market. And guess who has the money to come and buy those institutions or those resources? It's not Africans, they're impoverished. So you end up with international corporations coming in and they own your big industries, and your people are left with the food they eat. They own the minerals, they own the timber, they make you farm cocoa for them. You can't process cocoa. They will never let you process cocoa in Africa. They will not. I remember a time when, if you were a musician in Cameroon and you wanted to record an album, if you go and talk to Manu Dibango passed, but if you were to talk to Manu Dibango or a Camille Briand, they will tell you that to record you have to go to Paris. You have to go to Paris. They will not let... I actually heard that Manu Dibango actually went to have a recording studio in Cameroon, and they will not let him. Of course, technology has overcome some of that now, but that is how much the pressure of impoverishing is. And so this fight that Ambazonians are fighting, it's a fight that is definitely bigger than Ambazonian, but it's not a fight that either we shouldn't fight or it's not a fight that we cannot win. Because in the final analysis, if you make the exploitation of those resources more expensive than the value of those resources, one of two things will happen. Actually, only one will happen. They will negotiate with you because they can't do without the resources. No, Switzerland and Belgium are known as the biggest producers of chocolate in the world, but they don't have a cocoa tree that grows in those countries. So they depend on your cocoa from Kumba. On your cocoa from Kumba. I don't want to go into why the Swiss talks became the Swiss talks, but you know what I'm talking about. So the conclusion by Dr. Ako was very good. Let me see what my note says. One of there was a thing that we established in the struggle. Like I told you, Dr. Anyangwe said, La Republique is committed to resolving this thing militarily. So I listened to the conclusion of Dr. Ako. He said, and I asked the question, how can peace, because the whole idea of this this conference is to resolve this thing, is to stop the killing in Ambazonia, and we come together and negotiate. And so when I listened to the conclusion of Dr. Ako, I made myself a note here. I say, how can peace be reached without looking at it as a surrender? And how does La République du Cameroun, that things they can shoot their way to victory, be brought to negotiate? So that is what this conference and those who initiated it, that's what they are. That is the confounding situation they find themselves in. How do you bring people who believe and who only have the gun as their solution to come and sit down and negotiate? And how do you start calling for people to come and negotiate because they're shooting you without it being a surrender? That question I don't want to answer yet, but I'm watching very carefully to see how the architects of this conference, who I must say are very brilliant, they're very wise, I want to see how they navigate this. So I just wanted to share with you what my take is from sitting through that conference. That conference impressed me way more than I expected, and it actually uplifted me today. And I'm thinking, because here's what they're saying: oh, we're going to do all this work, we're going to research, we have all these working groups, they're going to put information together, and then whoever wants to come and use it. And I'm thinking, no, my brother, you are an Ambazonian, and you have just stepped into a vacuum, and we are not going to let you go. So do the work. We are together in this thing. You started it, and all of us will have to take it to the end. All of us.